Business Sidekick.
Hello guys, welcome in the first episode of Business Sidekick in 2017. I know that you're excited to listen to another awesome interview with another expert. So, my today's guest is John Hall, CEO of Influence & Co., who shares a ton of knowledge about content marketing and e-commerce. Should you start a blog? How to come out with posting ideas? What's most important in content marketing, and is it sales? Listen to my discussion with John and find out.
Business Sidekick.
I'm speaking with John Hall, CEO and co-founder of Influence & Co., a company that helps companies grow their audience and do business through content marketing. Happy to hear you in Business Sidekick, John.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate being on here.
Can you tell me where this interest in content marketing came from?
Oh, it actually just wasn't an interest at all in content. What happened is we just looked at it, and I think Brent was initially the person who started kind of doing a little bit in content marketing, and he realized, like, wow, like this is a huge, value to people to gain trust. And so what we looked at is we actually sat down and looked at it and said, what was the best way to build trust with an audience and to engage them in a way that you ultimately, move from their short-term to long-term memory as this like key expert, or, that you ultimately have this brand that they trust and are drawn to. That's how we kind of ended up being there. But it's funny, we were very specialized at first doing that, and we've evolved into the company that we are just by following the value and not just getting excited about content marketing. We're more excited about the value that people in leadership positions could get from certain effective content marketing techniques.
That's very interesting that you're talking about content marketing in terms of trust, because most people in the internet are speaking about content marketing in terms of sales. Can you please explain how does content marketing work like? Because many people think that it's about sales, so people see your blog and they found your blog through the Google organic search, and that's it, they buy it, they buy your product. It's not how it works, right?
Yeah, in content marketing, a big problem with it is exactly what you just said. People are just sales, hooked on that it being the savior for them selling and having a successful company, where most of our clients, they don't look at content marketing as their savior for sales. If you do, a lot to do it right, it takes time, and an investment. And so there's a variety of things where, I tell people is that don't rely 100% on content marketing being your sales, especially initially. Now at this point, we've done, even for our company, we've done content marketing well for 3 or 4 years, and now it supplies a ton of sales to us. But initially, you have to set it up right to get the right type of clients. It takes time to get those pipelines full, and also if you are very focused on selling people, it defeats the purpose. Because what content marketing, at least in our view of it, is that it's the best way to stay on top of people's minds at the right time, so that when they're making a buying decision or a brand advocacy decision or referral or whatever, that moment where it can cause a benefit for you, it's their company, it's your company that they think of. And that's the idea, is that you're being nurtured with content so that you do come to their mind at the right time. And so with that, if you come at it from a sales standpoint and you're like, oh, well, I'm just need to be 100% focused on sales, then you lose that. And you lose the trust that they naturally come to you initially, and they might not, because a lot of times the first person who comes to mind isn't the person who just keeps selling you and is focused on selling you. It's the first person that helps you, that you like. When you think about people that come to mind in a positive way, it typically is some sort of oh, wow, I really like that person, or there's some sort of connection there. And that's what you have to focus on with content marketing. Now, I'm not saying that you don't have good calls to action. You should have amazing calls to action, when you are developing content, and the whole goal is to draw people to you. However, you have to come at it from a standpoint is that what's most valuable to this audience? How do I naturally get in front of them in the right way that looks natural, that is either educational or it's in their buyer's journey, that that they're coming up on a piece of content. They don't immediately think, oh wow, I'm being sold to. And if they do, you lose that opportunity for trust and that natural kind of ability to get on their mind at the right time in the right moment.
Mm-hmm. But is content marketing something that still works? The internet is saturated with good content, and most companies run on or try to run blogs or build their website. And how to stand out from the crowd? That's the question now.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, a lot of times it doesn't. I mean, I would just be honest with you is that the problem is that let's say out of 10 things you need to do right to get content ROI, in content marketing, there's a lot of people that do 4 of those things, that do 3 of those things. Like, I'll give you an example. I remember I was meeting with MasterCard years ago, and they spent so much time on their insights blog, and they just spent a ton of time developing. It was actually really good content. It took so long to get the content developed. And it was like data that they were using the year before for content. And even though like it was, or the data was late, honestly, the content was pretty good. I mean, I was actually fairly impressed. However, they did, let's say 4 out of 10 things right. The content was good. It had some visual aspects to it. However, they had no form of distribution strategy. And they thought almost like a field of dreams mentality that if you build the blog, they will come. And that's just not true. And so people who say that, if you just create high quality content, they're just, people will be drawn to you. That's BS. You just can't do that now. Maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, sure. But nowadays, you're right, there is so much content. And so you have to do things, out of those 10 things or whatever the kind of things you need to do together to get that ROI, you need to do them all. And if you can't do them all, you need to either bring in an outside firm to do it, or you need to hire talent to do it, because you're not going to get the full ROI. And so, right now you're right. There's a lot of content, but there's still a ton of value out there because you can still, no matter how crowded, I don't care if there's a billion or if there's 20 to 100 billion pieces of content. Doesn't matter how big you get out there digitally. All that matters is that are you getting the right eyes to view that content? And it doesn't matter if there's a ton of content out there. That doesn't affect if you can reach and distribute correctly. So if there's 1,000 people that are important to you, so let's say for us, there's probably 10,000, 20,000 CMOs, CEOs, entrepreneurs that we really like that are important for us to reach. Now, if we're focused on getting the right content in front of those 10, 20,000 people and we become, very good at it, content marketing is extremely, extremely valuable. But that's I would say the natural, the best goal for content marketing is you're actually looking at the target audience and hyper targeting. But also content marketing just in general does have some perception value, and it has a value that if people see your content and let's say you write in different publications and they see you are writing in the trade publication or general publications like a Fast Company or something like that, it can bring credibility to your brand. And throughout that buyer's journey, when they see different pieces of content that you have out there, it can naturally create a perception of credibility. So there's different values of content marketing, and it depends on your goals. But the short answer is absolutely, there's still a ton of value in content marketing. There still will always be a value. It's not going to go away. It may change slightly, but there's never not going to be a need to educate an audience that you're targeting that needs to learn about an area or the area that you're in. That's never going to stop. What's going to change is just how you distribute and make sure you're getting in front of them in the right way.
The funny thing is that although we were talking about writing, from what you're saying, content marketing is like a promotional strategy more than just writing. Can you give a couple of tips? Because I believe that everybody knows what to write, maybe, but not all know who they want to write to. Are there any ways that you can indicate who's your perfect writing persona?
See, I get where you're coming from, and I think in a way that way, but I also kind of disagree. Is that everybody doesn't know what they should write. I guess there's a difference between what you think you need to write and what you should write. And for me, what you should write is what's most valuable to the audience that you're trying to engage with. You've got to think about them first. And so for me, you might think that you know, but in reality is that you don't know until you actually get the right content and see what engages them. And so I'll give you an example with my book. It's called Top of Mind. It's being published from McGraw-Hill in April. I've wanted to write a book for years, and there's been all these different topics that I thought, the audience would love and that I thought was cool. But in reality is that over time I realized that some of those topics just didn't resonate with the audience that I was trying to reach. And so how we arrived at Top of Mind is that we wrote pieces of content and realized, wow, people are really resonating with this type of content, so we need to create more of it. We created more of it. It did really well. So then it was like, let's do a book on this, because this is what, we've tested out that does really well. And that's pretty much what I should write about, because we did some of it, we tested it, did well. We did more of it, did well. And so that's where, for me, there's a factor of getting content out there and testing and seeing what works and then expanding. And so what I'll tell you is when it comes to writing, you've got to look at what barriers are going to get in the way of us actually, getting content created and getting it distributed. And when it comes down to it, it's simply that there's always going to be barriers. There's always going to be some challenge that comes up. And you have to identify those and say, okay, here are the potential barriers. So for me, for example, I can't stay consistent because I'm traveling, I'm speaking, I'm all over the place. So to do that, I have to have a team that's focused on helping me develop this content, getting it distributed, so that it is consistent. And so for me, it was hiring and outsourcing. Now, for some people that are listening, they might not have those resources at all. They might say, okay, well, we have to do this internally. Well, then you have to look and say, what can we do internally and how can we do that consistently? And be honest with yourself. And that's a problem, is that people get super excited, do a ton of work, and then all of a sudden it just falls off. The priority, and then you have to restart. So there's all those barriers that can happen, and it's important for you to look and say, let's be honest, what can we do internally? What can we deliver? Or what can we actually produce and be effective with? And then if not, we need help, or we need to realize that that's what we can do and do the best job we can with that and accept that. And so just don't get overly excited where you try and take over the world and we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. And then all of a sudden, you just become this ineffective content marketer that is where a lot of people fall off. There's a ton of people that just say, okay, well, this didn't work for me because they didn't do it effectively. They didn't bring in the right resources. They didn't maintain consistency, and then it puts a bad name on content marketing.
How are you supposed to choose the right topic then?
The right topic for what?
For your audience.
Well, for us, our process is a little unique where, when we take on a client, we have a blueprint that we kind of create together that's like, okay, what do you think is the content that will resonate most? And then what we do is we look at data and information from publications and see, okay, what articles do really well at publications that match with some of these topics. And you can kind of identify as that, okay, well, this type of content does really well. So for example, AI in the healthcare industry is really hot in certain publications and doing really well. And audiences are really wanting more of that type of content. And then we look at, okay, what content's coming from you that is, performing, or that you really want to get out there, that you have a passion for, because you want to marry the passion, the education, the strengths of the people that you're extracting knowledge from with what is most valuable for the audience, because the content shows it becomes a little more, I guess you could say, authentic. It becomes more, I guess you could say, valuable from the start. And when that happens, you can typically increase the chances that something's going to be more engaging. So we try and marry those two together, and then also you test. And so, for example, we know that when I write about things to do with content ROI, because that's a huge challenge right now as people are trying to find the ROI in content marketing. The content doesn't overperform. It doesn't get 1 million views. However, it will get a couple thousand views that are very, very valuable to us. So we do more content around that because it's the right people. Is it going to be the 100,000, 200,000 view article that I write? No, but it's going to reach the right people. However, I just got done doing a series of leadership articles relative to different things that I've written about in the past have done really well, and that's to reach a larger audience and to target kind of the more general brand awareness audience. And so it's a lot of identifying what is unique about kind of your background, your experiences, information, data you have, with pairing that with what's valuable and what does well at publications. We have proprietary software that does that. However, if you don't, then you can look and see, okay, what are articles that are consistently trending on these sites? What are often searched in these areas? Like you can kind of marry those things with what your passions are, and then creating the content, seeing what performs, and then what works out well, do a little more of that. What doesn't work out well, don't do more.
So let's imagine that I have an e-commerce store, an online store, and I sell products that are under $10. So as you can imagine, it's almost everything. And what would be the first step that you suggest to take to start the content marketing machine?
I mean, first thing is you get a blueprint. I mean, you so many people don't document what their actual execution blueprint is, and what the strategy is, and what you're trying to accomplish. What are primary goals, secondary goals, what you're measuring after 6 months, what you're measuring after 12 months. These are the things that I would make sure that are very, very clear at the beginning. And that's kind of your starting point. Then it's what is the team and the resources I need in place to execute on this. A lot of times you'll need to bring someone in to help with even creating the blueprint or the strategy. But once you get those two things down, it becomes easier and easier to actually execute because you have a plan that you're executing against. You have the right resources. And so that's the first start of it. If you are like a one-person shop and you just don't have the ability to bring in resources or to do it, then you have to look at it and you have to say, all right, well, what is my starting point with this blueprint? What can I do now? What do I think I need to do later? When do I, once I get the value and justify it, what resources do I bring in after that, whether it be an internal hire or outside hire? And so that's very, very clear to get from the start. And then I think content triggering, you should always be doing that. Anytime you're talking to someone or engaging with them in any way, that they have an engaging moment where they're like, wow, that's interesting, or you're having a conversation and somebody's like, oh gosh, like I'm glad you explained that, or anything that you see them getting value out of it, where it ultimately helps them become better at what they do, and it gains that trust. Write that down, get the topic down, and start developing a topic database of all the topics that people are naturally engaged with when you talk to them, and then you go from there. Like I go back to Simon Sinek's Start With Why. If you've never seen it, it's a great TED Talk, and Simon really dives into why you're doing what you do. And that your communication strategy and the way you communicate and lead should be around that why. So, like, you know, a lot of e-commerce companies that you're creating a product to solve a certain solution and to truly help make somebody either be more productive or effective or something that's enjoyable. So, what is your why? Like, what are you truly trying to do, and how do you communicate that why? And in the short term, that's sometimes very hard to get. You know, to immediately say, oh, we're immediately going to create content, sales are going to just come in. And so for me, like, sure, you can have companies that are very hooked on the short-term sales goals. The ones who do it the best aren't the ones that are completely reliant on social content marketing for bringing in short-term sales. They're ones that are saying, for example, our why is we truly want to help people build trust with audiences and help them influence the audience they're trying to reach in the best way possible through education. So for us to do that, we need to generate a ton of content around getting them to understand exactly the things that affect our area. So how can they build influence how can they use the content that we're creating to leverage across their company? How can they use it in recruiting? Can they use it in sales? So there's all these things that we can get content from to gain their trust so that they are they get more value out of what we do, and they understand our industry more. Now, in the long term, that's helped us create long-term partnerships. It's helped us attract top talent. It's helped us attract people who want to invest in us. There's all these benefits there. And if we were only worried about short-term sales, a lot of times we would miss out on some of those major benefits in content marketing. And so that's why it's important to look at it from, I'm in it for the long term. Here's what my long-term metrics are and what's really important to me. In the short term, sure, if you want to have sales, be one of them. But there's not many content marketing programs that in a month or two that you're going to see this crazy amount of sales go up in a couple years or a year or so. Absolutely. For us, it creates. I think we got 20,000 or more leads from our from our inbound efforts last year, which is a lot for a company like us. So that is significant, and it's a great sales number for us. However, our goal from the start wasn't only how we can drive sales. Sales was a big component of it, but it was also how we can truly be a leader in this space that can result in sales, that can result in recruits, that can result in higher sales conversion, that can result in all these different benefits that content marketing can create.
All right. So the last question, can you please tell me something about the promotional strategy? Because it's something that people don't always remember about. For example, you have your content published and what to do. Many people think that posting something on LinkedIn and twice on Twitter, that's the promotional strategy.
Well, no, there's a lot of times, if you promote I have 55,000 Twitter followers, and I don't expect that me just tweeting something is going to change the world, my world on promotion. That's honestly crazy if you're relying just on that. And, I have a decent amount of followers. I look at it as, if you're talking about promotion of the content or distribution of it, I look at you should have a ton of different distribution and promotional tools, whether it be tapping into channels that are partners, or you have an email campaign, or you are initially hitting a publication with a lot of that audience, or you're doing paid social, or you're doing paid ads. There should be all these different tactics you're using to get more of the right eyes. Let's say you're targeting even 100 people to promote that content. You can hyper target using Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever to get the right eyes on that piece of content. And as long as it converts, once again, is that some of these pieces aren't going to be super promotional with, oh, you need to buy this immediately. It's going to be talking about the area of, it's going to be thought leadership or, educational content. And so when you look at, how you're promoting, you have to look at, okay, well, does this convert? Okay, if it does, then great. It makes sense to drive a ton of traffic to it. Or if it doesn't convert, does it make sense to drive traffic to it just to get people to kind of get familiar with our brand in this way? And, you've got to make those decisions.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you very much. It was a ton of knowledge. So thanks a lot for accepting my invitation, and thanks for your time.
Okay. All right. It's good talking to you. Take care.
Business Sidekick.
As you heard from John, content marketing can be an awesome way to grow your audience and build trust and loyalty among your customers. I hope that we were able to explain content-related problems. If so, show me some love and share it. Thanks a lot for listening, and remember, the next episode will be published in 2 weeks, and you can find it on iTunes, SoundCloud and YouTube. Have an awesome start of the year. It was your Business Sidekick speaking.
This podcast was brought to you by Lifetime.